to the cognitive, more rational thinking parts of the brain.
What are some of the biggest paradigm shifts that you've seen happen as you and Richard have been going across the country and across the world for Go for No?
The whole philosophy of Go for No, which seems counterintuitive, like no one in sales wants to get a no. We've all been taught and trained to get a yes. That's what we want. But the whole idea is that you don't get more yeses by avoiding no's.
Compliance, she says, will never take you where commitment can go.
What does it mean right now for someone that has the survival brain, and what kind of feelings can they expect to go through?
Glad to see you guys are still, still doing your thing, keeping it nice and light, and also great value. It's always great to see people who are very positive at this time when a lot of people aren't. So it's great to see this, guys. I'm real happy for you.
And so here's why it's so important to ask questions. Because if we think we know what they are thinking, okay, we are going to present our product or service in a certain way.
And I created the Sales Health Alliance to help empower salespeople to reach peak levels of sales performance, but also peak levels of well-being through better mental health.
Social distancing, sort of being in partial lockdowns, not being able to communicate and be in touch with people the way we normally do. It's really difficult because we're social creatures.
How do you keep your feelings from clouding your decision making? Great question, Ryan.
Oh, fantastic question.
Great question, Ryan. So here's the thing, right, Ryan? You have to look at business and personal, right? Don't mix the two.
Okay, I'll backtrack. We have 7 universal expressions. So we have happiness, we have sadness, we have fear, we have surprise, we have disgust and contempt. And these are the 7 expressions we all make.
How many people would go 2.5 years working towards their goal with not a single paycheck?
I failed. I lost my business. I lost my home. I was a multi-millionaire, Dan and Nick, in April 2012. April 2013, $400 in the bank. No credit cards, no way out, no credit, no nothing. I mean, it was all gone. And I now look at it as a growth pattern. If I had not gone through that pivotal time and through the pivotal moment being a custodian with someone's spoiled milk and trash can on my bare skin, I would not be who I am today as a coach, a consultant, a speaker, because I wouldn't be able to connect with people on a real level.
Nick, Dan, I got to show you guys a little bit of love. I appreciate all of the skilling up, all of the things that you guys have taught me that I've implemented in my business, the guidance, the support, the trainings, everything has truly taken my business to the next level. Me as an entrepreneur, someone who's less than 1 year into my business, there are things that you just don't know, right? That you guys have decades worth of experience in growing businesses, netting high value deals. And so I just appreciate everything. How do I know it's working? How do I know the brains, the brain science, the sales psychology, the customer profiles, all that type of stuff? How do I know it's actually working? Because I netted 3 extra clients in the last 2 weeks. So there's actually an ROI. So I appreciate you guys so much. And man, I'm looking forward to a lot more great shows. Thanks.
So important. And some of you are probably thinking at this point, my sales isn't really going the way I need it to go, or the way when I've been selling, it's not working.
This is where we walk into a dark room and we turn on a flashlight for the first time. We see things we haven't seen in front of us. So Dan, one for me has to be planting the seed, right? I think the next one is EQ, not IQ, looking at routine. We've talked about this a little bit. Finding your rhythm. 3 things you can control and 1 you can't. Which one do you focus on? Work out what we can control, be comfortable with what we can control, and let go of what we can't control right now.
And I want to add something to this list too, is to take a break.
We get to really understand the context of what might be happening in their world right now.
You thought about what would be right for the client. You thought about what would make that easier, and you didn't do it from a point of view of what's going to fill your wallet. So again, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. Is there anyone else that wants to share as well? Because this is the time to do that right now.
And I'm going to challenge all of you to really, really look at your business and say, how can I make everything zero friction for the customer? So Tyler, you're on the exact route you need to be on in trying to create that zero friction for that customer in the middle. If you do everything, you're going to see huge leaps and bounds. Like
So one of the things I talk about a lot, guys, is be easy to do business with.
So yeah, so your first, see, you guys see what I'm talking about working from home? That's my dog. Can you all hear the dog? Right? So you gotta love a live show, right? You gotta love it. What Nick and I are gonna do is we're gonna actually walk you guys through the big 5 moves, getting clarity on our customer profile for us as the big move. The tasks underneath it will identify all our avatars in every single phase. We're going to have to identify things like what motivates them, what demotivates them, what are their struggles, what are they going through, how do we have a follow-up sequence for them, how do we follow up with them, what kind of questions do we ask them, which way do we connect with them, what kind of articles can we send them, what kind of training videos can we send them to help them get from where they are and build that bridge to where they want to be.
That's a perfect segue into using feel, felt, found. Okay, guys. So one of the things that we talk about a lot, is, how can we use these old sales techniques that really work, the basics, right, the foundational stuff, and bring that into today's modern market.
We want to be pros in our field. That takes dedication. That takes more work.
Feel, felt, found is so powerful. When you're speaking to someone, you can say, I know how you're feeling. All right? You can say, I've felt the same way. You can say, look, I've found the same sort of problems. All it does is conveys the emotive value that you understand what the person's going through.
That one routine alone will change your business and life in so many ways.
Disc profile is really, really important. So with a D-type personality, it is so important that we understand we need to be brief. And the I personality is the complete opposite to the D. S's are heavily sympathetic. C is a really interesting one again. C is a cross between an accountant and a CFO. If you know what the people are that will buy your product, because that's why we're all in business or all in sales, if you know what they look like, you'll know what you need to say to them and you'll know what they sound like. If I was selling to a D-type personality, I'm going to read them very quickly. I'm going to look at their body language. I'm going to look at the way they look directly at the screen. And I'm going to look at the conversation and how the conversation flows. And I'm going to know straight away that D-type personality, I need to get down to what's going to work for them. And I need to give them choices so they can make a quick choice.
Do not let other people's false emergencies take you off of your routine.
And also when you're present, Dan, you can look at what you're doing and you can start to pivot and shift a lot easier.
Every time you set out to do a task, I'm going to challenge you to ask yourself, will this task work? Will it get me to where I want to go? Is it getting me closer to or further away from my goal?
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously you're going to change your approach and you're going to look at what you can do differently. I would be looking at doing some research as well as trying to work out, what does that ideal sort of person look like and how would I be best to reach out to them?
Process, I had a 62% connection rate. Ryan, who had to jump off because he had a meeting, he was at a 50% connection rate. 50% of the people he contacted gave him an interview on Zoom, gave him a meeting on Zoom. 50% just because it was different.
We connect that way. And from a business talk, it goes to a personal talk. And down the road, it comes back to a business discussion.
100%. Listen, the reality of all business, it's not logo and logo. You do not work with any of your customers' logos. It is the people that are synergistic. The people, when they connect, that's when real business is done. I mean, think about that for a second. And sometimes that hits you.
Okay, let me run with this. I've got to come back to what I want to do, guys, which is doing business. Right? I keep on saying this. We all just need to keep doing business. So if we look at doing business, when I'm dealing with a direct D-type personality and I've picked it and I've read it straight away, I'm asking them things like, how are they going? How's their business? Are they still operational right now? What are they doing that's keeping their business moving forward? Because that's what they love.
Hey everyone, my name is Ryan Mohammed. I'm from Toronto, Ontario. I'm a sales professional in the transportation and logistics industry. I'm currently enrolled in the NRDD television show with Nick Redstone and Dan Deegan. It's must-see TV every Tuesday. I personally look forward to all the new episodes that we go through together. During these current times, it's hard for sales reps as myself.
Welcome everybody to episode 6 of the NRDD Sales and Business Training Show. If you're joining us from locations like New Zealand, it is 8 o'clock in the morning. Australia's a couple hours behind. Probably nobody from Australia is going to be joining us live because you'd have to get up at like 4 a.m. On Pacific time, we're talking 11. Central, we're talking 2. And of course, on Eastern, we're talking 3 p.m. Nick Redstone has some stuff he wants to say. All right. I'm assuming Nick is not ready to talk yet. Nick's voice and thing is going here. So listen, today we've got a show. We just can't get this whole thing mastered, can we? It's hilarious. So you know what? That's what happens with live television. You know, sometimes actually, I think Nick's computer might be frozen now that I see what's going on in the background here. So listen, here's what we're going to talk about today. We got 3 major topics that we're looking at discussing today. And as we get to those topics, here is the show intro.
I can't talk now, okay? I'm working. All right, bye. All right, you were saying?
He's needy. Every day it's, what did you do? Who did you talk to? Who did you email?
And CRM?
Doc, this is a partnership. I can't provide my 360-degree view if she doesn't share her daily activities. It's about being transparent. Who's that?
Somebody.
Who's Jordan now?
He's a prospect. We're talking.
Why do not know about it?
We're talking.
If CRM don't know about it, it don't exist.
Fine. Then he doesn't exist.
See, Doc?
What's angry?
That's what I'm talking about. Disrespectful. Don't appreciate organization.
Doc, I'm great at selling.
She at the top.
But I need some space so I can do it my way.
Your way. Pen and post-it notes.
My system worked.
Spreadsheets?
Yeah, and privacy.
If CRM don't know about it,
then it don't exist.
I sound like that?
Yes. I'm only with you because I'm forced to be.
Okay.
There we go.
Time's up.
Yeah, don't say anything.
Move! Bitch.
All right, well, we're back. And while we were on there watching our main intro, we actually fixed all our technical issues. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw it over to Mr. Redstone right now, and he'll take it away.
Hey guys, how are you? And great to be on again today. Hey, one of the things that really has been popping up a lot of questions coming up for Dan and I, a lot of feeds coming up, a lot of posts coming up in the feeds, is this conversation around being a salesperson and being, you know, a person that you can just have a conversation with, a trusted advisor, a person that you can just sort of know is going to be able to do what you need as a customer, and you as a customer are not going to feel like you're being sold to. So there's some tips we're going to share with you guys today so that you can look more like a trusted advisor and less like a salesperson. So what I want to sort of kick off with is we're going to work through 3 key components. One of those is we're going to work through next steps. We're not going to work through follow-up. Follow-up is a system that was old school sales where we follow someone up, we ring someone, you know, are you interested in doing business? Have we got your business? You know, those days are gone, guys. We need to be thinking about next steps. What is it that you want from the customer? What is it you want the customer to do next? What path are you going to walk them down, and make those next steps really clear so that you can get them to where you want them to be and you can both end up in an agreed destination. We're going to look at sanitizing sales pipelines. You know, I don't know how many times I've said it before, but the sales pipeline and the honesty around your sales pipelines is so important, because if you've got a whole lot of deals that have just started, you're not closing them in the same month. Maybe you don't know how to close someone in the same week. Maybe you don't know how to close someone in the same month. We're going to address a lot of that today. And of course, the last one is probing and asking the right questions and digging right down into what it is the customer wants, and going through finding out how you can look at what they want and turn it into more of a understanding of what it is they need, what it is the solution's going to do for their business, and an overarching understanding of what you will do to meet their requirement versus just selling to them. So this is going to be a really cool show. So I want to kick off with this right off the bat. I want to kick off with this. When I first started in sales, no one ever said to me, take some notes, right? It's not a case of being the best waiter in the restaurant. You don't want to look like you can do everything by memory, right? You don't want to walk in, have a business room full of business people sitting around and you're not taking any notes, or you're not doing anything to show that you're recording some information. So don't be afraid when you go into a business meeting to actually say to someone, do you mind if I take some notes? They will think that you are listening to them. They will see that you are listening to them because you're writing things down, and they will know the information they are sharing with you doesn't have to be reshared over and over again, right? This is a really, really powerful one. So many experienced salespeople feel like, well, if I don't take notes, I look like I know what I'm doing. It's not the way it is, right? It actually reverse engineers, because you may not take notes. You may not note things down, and all of a sudden you get back to the office, you get back to your home office, you get back to your office, and you go to put stuff into your CRM, like we just watched the CRM system there, and all of a sudden you've got nothing. You've forgotten the key components. You've forgotten the key parts of the sale, all right? You've forgotten the key parts of what it is the customer wants. So taking notes is really important. Well, here's a scenario. When I was in sales, and kicked in sort of, and started dealing with key account managers and key accounts, I was dealing with some pretty big accounts. And I'm ashamed to say, dealing with one of those accounts, I forgot their name. I didn't have it written down, and I was sitting there in the meeting, and I called them the wrong acronym for their name, right? This business was called CSP, and I called them CPS. I did that twice during the meeting. It did not aid me in my conversation at all. It did not help me. So one of the things I started to focus on is taking a piece of paper like this, and you can take a template. You can create a template where you're going to load a template into the replay for you guys to actually download it as a PDF. But you can actually take a piece of paper and write down a couple of key things that you want to get from the meeting. So the first one would be, make sure you note down the business name. Really important, right? Who are you meeting with? You don't want to forget the person's name that you're meeting with, right? I know it sounds crazy, but it happens. You start getting nervous when they start firing questions that you weren't ready for, and you start firing off on different tangents, and you forget the person's name, or you forget their last name. Happens a lot. What is it that they want to achieve? What is it that their current setup or current situation looks like? What is their intended situation going to look like, or what is the requirement that they want to be set up going to look like? The time frame they're working on, the budget that they're working on, and the key decision makers. Now, if you note that all down on one page, all of that is what you require when you go back to your office to put into your CRM or your spreadsheet if you're not running a CRM, and that will help you so much with the sales transaction. That will help you with your next step. So, Dan, do you want to give us a demo of that, mate? Have you got one of your fantastic diagrams or drawings?
It's when it comes to those questions, Nick, I look at it and they say, you know what, for us, what we'll do is in the replay of this, actually on the replay page, why don't we create an actual document and we'll let everybody be able to download it? Because really, in essence, everyone, it's just a checklist, right? For key strategic questions or key things you need to answer. I can't tell you how many checklists, how many simple pieces of paper I have in so many customer files just to stay current. When Nick and I were talking before this show, when he said, well, we got to remember the company's names, Nick and I had a good laugh because I said to him, I said, really? He says, dude, it happened. And, a lot of the times, we could have had many things happening in our lives and we forget. We have a brain lapse, right? I've been very vocal about an opportunity that I missed thinking I had it when I never had it. So Nick, I've got no drawing specifically for what you just said, because the reality is this checklist that we're going to create, I think is going to be dynamic. So for all of you, Nick and I will make sure to post the replay and we'll put the checklist in the replay. Now, Nick, so now that we're both here, because we got this fancy dancy new system where we can both see each other now, are you frozen again? He is. Nick's frozen again. This is crazy. Okay, so obviously this system isn't quite ready to go live and to shoot things. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on here just to keep things moving. So where Nick was going to go next is Nick had a really cool strategy about digging into the people we're sitting at the meeting. Now, this is one I think we can all get into when we start looking at the different people in the room. So have you ever been in a meeting with 5 or 6 people? How many here, by sign of hands, because everyone should have their hands up, has forgotten somebody's name? Now, for me, that was critical. And Nick shared something, and he was showing us something that I kind of just wanted to address with you. So part of what I do when I'm in a meeting is, say this is the boardroom table, and I'll walk in, and if I'm sitting here, I'll actually write people's names, right? Sam, let's say, so on and so forth, right? And what I'll do is, in writing their names, I'll keep that kind of in a top corner. If this is my notepad, I'll kind of write it up here kind of thing. And I'll keep that in kind of a top corner because it allows me to understand where they are. Nick had one where he actually has a really cool way of doing it. Let me just grab another pen here. Geez, nothing seems to be working today, brother. So say this is your notebook. What Nick does is he looks in the people he sees. So he does it as if it's a calendar, a clock. And Nick will put their business cards in that order as he sees them, which is another, I think, really cool way of bringing somebody into, keeping somebody, your people clear on your meeting. We seem to be having major technical issues today, and I apologize for that, everyone. So this is an opportunity to keep everybody real clear in your meeting, right? Because I can't tell you how many times I've gone to shake somebody's hand and they said, okay, Dan, you have yourself a fantastic day. And then you shake the hand, you're like, you too, my friend, because you forgot their names, right? Everybody used to say, Dan, my infamous word was buddy. Hey, buddy, have a good one, buddy, because I just used to forget everybody's names. And I know that's, kind of faux pas in the sales industry, but it's reality. I mean, we forget people's names consistently, right? So if you've ever had that happen, I urge you to bring it back and use one of these 2 opportunities, right? One of these, actually, we're here. One of these will work for you, whether you do it in the top corner and all you do is, you just little X here and you put Nick here and all that kind of stuff in the top corner with your date. Personally, you kind of, for me anyways, I tend to hold my pad up like this when I'm talking. So nobody could really see it. Nobody really understands I'm drawing that picture. However, in the end, we know it's going to work because we're going to remember people's names, right? And what's the big rule of sales? When you talk, when you give somebody, you share somebody's name, things really happen, right? That's key. What also Nick and I were going to talk about, and I'll try and get Nick back in here. Bear with me. So what the third thing that Nick and I wanted to talk about, which was very critical, especially in today's day and age, is sanitizing your pipeline. And here's the thing when it comes to sanitizing your pipeline, right? I think salespeople in general, most of us anyways, I'll say most of us, we tend to really not focus, not have a concentration on what exactly where we are in our sales sequence or where we are in, hold on, I'm just going to assign Nick. And there we go. He's back in. Nick, are you here with us, mate?
I am, mate. I am. We're clearly having some serious technical issues today. We moved to a new platform, guys, to try to do different camera angles, bring different views and that sort of thing. Clearly, this hasn't worked. I apologize profusely. If you stayed with us, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. You'll know that when we do the replay on this, we'll edit this part out. But look, let's just do a quick recap. So for those of you that have joined us, this is the NRDD Sales and Business Coaching Show. We work through teaching strategies and tips to people so that you can go out and do more, you can achieve more, you can excel further in your sales. The big conversation today, guys, is this. Let's not be salespeople. Let's be trusted advisors. Let's guide people through a transaction rather than go out and be this typical sales type person. So one of the things Dan was sharing was one of the hot tips that I use in sales, which is where you're meeting 6 or 7 or more people in a boardroom and you meet that many people, you forget their names. Let's be honest, you certainly don't remember their first name and their last name unless you're really good like that. So when they give you their business cards, put their business cards in the order they're seated. And it's really easy to remember where they're seated around the boardroom table because your business cards reflect the same order. So that's tip number one. When we're looking at things like next steps, when we're looking at things like what we do to keep the sales transaction flowing, it's really important that we, as salespeople, know what we're going to do next. So if you missed the start of the show, there was a technical issue there. If you missed the start of the show, we played this video, which will be in the replay, and it was the importance of using a CRM. For those of you that don't use a CRM, I want to break something down for you. CRM stands for Client Relationship Management Tool. So the honest God's truth is, if you're not using a CRM or not using some kind of recording information system, you're not managing your customer as effectively as you can. Look, hey, I've been in sales for over 25 years. Dan and I have 60 years between us. I think I'm a bit older than you, Dan, but close to. The reality is this: if you are meeting more than, say, for example, 1,000 people a year, and you're not putting into some sort of CRM database, you can't remember all the details. Even if you're meeting 300 people a year, you can't remember their details. So I urge anyone that's not using a CRM now to record their information some way in a spreadsheet around their customer details, and then quickly work through getting CRM in place, right? It might be you're looking at Salesforce if you're a big business and you want to take your business to the next level. We're not paid by Salesforce to say this, but Salesforce is a fantastic system. It could be you're using Pipedrive. It could be you're using Sugar-Free. There's all sorts of CRMs out there, but I urge you to use one based on the fact that it's a client relationship management tool. And the best way to manage your clients is to be able to manage them through a system like a CRM. Now, as salespeople in sales land, we get lazy. It's just the reality. We have to be honest about it. One of the things we tend to do is look at our pipeline, our sales pipeline, and say, I'm good for this month, no problem at all, and rely on our numbers. But what we don't tend to do, guys, is we don't tend to, guys and girls, is we don't tend to run our bullshit meter over our own sales pipeline. We don't tend to look at it and put milestones against it and say, this is where I'm at right now. This is where the customer's at in the transaction with me. So to be honest, if you look at your pipeline sometimes, you'll actually find you're not closing a lot in the same month that you're working in. And if you're really concerned about making sure your business grows exponentially and making sure in this hard, tough COVID time, you're going to be successful and sustain as a business, you're definitely going to want to make sure that you've got revenue coming through every month. If you've just started a business, if you're in a startup and you are looking at your cash flow, your available cash flow, what's on your balance sheet, you're definitely going to want to make sure that you understand how to be closing business every single month, right? So there's lots of things that we can do in the sales conversation to bring that step a lot further, faster forward, right? So when you're working with someone and you're looking at next steps, what is it you want them to do? If you're at the point where they're going to get some information to you, what time frame are you putting around that? Are you sitting down with them and saying, hey, would I have that by next Wednesday? Or are you saying things like, hey, just get the information to me when you can? You see, Dan and I use a system where if someone's going to get some information to us, we're working on an agreed timeline, an agreed amount of information that's coming through, so we don't have to then circle back around and try and find the information we need later on. We've got that, we've agreed what we require from them, and we've told them what we need from them. We've given them a timeline, we've given them, some understanding of when we need the information. And as long as you get that information when you need it, you can now move to the next step. And the next step might be sitting with another person in another meeting to agree how you're going to roll out the delivery. And maybe agreeing the service parameters, and maybe agreeing the service level agreement. As long as those next steps are in place, guys, we can start to move the sales transaction along a lot faster, and we can start to do it with a lot more confidence. Now, one question I'm asked all the time is, how do I close people on the same day? How do I close people on the same day? It is not difficult, but it needs to be genuine. Yeah? So you don't close people on the same day with commission breath. And if you haven't heard that saying in sales, commission breath is like this. Oh, we're getting some great comments on there. Thank you very much, Julianne. And we're trying to share some really great value here on the show every week, and I hope you see the show every week. But if you've got commission breath, you are not genuine about how you're going to help someone with their sales transaction, all right? Because what you're doing is you're working to try and make the commission you need for the month to make the revenue you want coming in, but it's not genuine in terms of how you're actually working to close someone, help someone get what they need to put in the solution they need for their business. So it comes across very ungenuine. If you're very genuine and you're sitting there saying, these are the steps that I know we can take, to put in the solution that you're looking for. And notice I said solution, right? Not a product, not a service, a solution. If the solution meets the fit, you're doing business that day, that week, that month. I can assure you of that. So we then look at the sanitizing of our pipeline, and we break down, where is my pipeline at? What have I actually got going on in my pipeline? Have I put some milestones against that to say, for example, 25% might be I just met the person. 50% might be I've got a proposal in front of the person. 75% might be I'm putting agreed timelines in place to get the service delivery to happen. And of course, 100% is, hey, I've got the business. Okay? That's just a very brief example of how to use a milestone to work through sanitizing your pipeline. But here's one thing I'll guarantee you, and a tip for sales players, is if you do that and you put those sales pipeline milestones in place, you'll close a lot faster, you'll close a lot more confidently, you'll have all the information you need from your customer to be able to deliver the solution they need, and you will look like more of a trusted advisor, because you're not trying to close every deal on your sales pipeline because you need sales revenue for the month because the business is asking for it, or you've just started a startup and you need sales revenue so your business can survive and sustain. I hope you guys find some value in that. Dan, you've got anything you want to show the guys with regards to the diagram there?
Nick, actually, you know what? I need to add something to this that's very, very, very important, specifically for today being September 6th, when we're filming this. You're all entering projections, set up for next year, right? So when we're looking at our sales pipeline and we're looking at sanitizing it, the idea is, where am I realistically at, right? Because let's face it, a lot of salespeople said, no, I got this great opportunity. I'm like literally 2 calls away from closing. I've had plenty of students say, oh, awesome. Okay, so why did they buy? Well, I'm not really sure. How much business do they have? Well, I'm not really sure. Okay, what are the reasons they're making this move? Well, I'm not really sure. So if we can't answer a lot of these questions, we're actually going to put a block. We're actually going to erect a wall on our movement towards getting or achieving that goal, closing that account, right? So when we're talking about, what are we here, overhead for? When we're talking about sanitizing our pipeline, so a lot of what Nick was just saying is, if you say your funnel is here, right? Your pipeline is here, and you've got specific areas. So this will be cold, this will be warm, and this here will be hot on your pipeline. And then as they drop down here, they become the big C, the customer, okay? So as they become a customer, we need to, obviously, every one of you have, in sales, we understand that there's X amount of information we have here, we have X amount of information here, and then when they get into this area, this is where a lot of the interest comes in. And when we have interest from our customers, we have different areas that we have to cover in each of these sections, right? So as Nick and I have said many times in the past, when it's up here, do they meet your customer profile, right? Now, for all of you that are watching right now that are saying, man, I got about 15 people here, I'm going to request, and I'm going to actually beg of you to take a step in, if however many are in your hot, and really go back and ask yourself one very important question. Do they meet my customer profile? Are they truly in line with the business I want long term? Because let's call a spade here. We're in an unprecedented time in business, and I don't know about you, but my efforts, I want focused on long-term relationships that are going to, allow me to be the professional I am, right? So we all know, Nick and I have talked many, many times that there's 2 types of salespeople. One is the amateur and one's the pro. What's the difference between these 2? The big difference is the amateur is in it for the sale, and the pro is in it to help their client achieve their goals. I was just reading something on the weekend, and they asked a question in the book, and blew me away to the point where I even called Nick and I said, you'll never see, okay, what are you doing? This is the question. What are you doing to help guarantee your customer's success? So in any industry you're in, whatever product or service you sell, how does that product or service guarantee your customer's success? I mean, think about that for a second, Nick. You know, as we sit here, we ask ourselves, when we're sanitizing our pipeline, which pieces of your product or service are going to help guarantee your customer success? Do you know irrevocably why they buy? Do you know why you're in conversations with them? Because unless they've just started and you're the first person that's called them to offer that product or service, somebody else is servicing them. So why would they make the switch? Right? A lot of the times we call this our value add, or we call it our, what's another name we would call that, Nick? It's slipping my mind here, but value prop.
In terms of value.
Yeah, value prop. So what's your big value proposition? How do you differentiate yourself? And when we start analyzing these and when we really start looking at it, we often find that a lot of the customers we thought were pretty close to closing are not actually where we thought they were, right? Because then the question becomes, okay, if this is the reason they buy and I've fulfilled that, why are we not doing business? And that's where we as salespeople, it's actually, in my opinion, Nick, it's actually gold when we sit down and critically think about this kind of stuff. Because when we find the answers, when we realize the answers, it gives us a massive opportunity to go back into the client. What do you think of that?
Oh, 100%, Dan. And I think one of the things that I have to be honest, you and I, God, we would have trained thousands and thousands and thousands of salespeople collectively, right? The reality is this: the one component that is consistent is so many salespeople, we're in it to sell and to make money and make commission and and set ourselves up, in terms of the way you sell, you can make a lot of money. Let's face it, you make a lot of good money in sales. But what we often tend to forget is sometimes it's not right for the customer. Sometimes the customer is not the right person for us. Sometimes it's going to be too hard to sell to the customer because we can't meet their needs. My suggestion is this: when you look at your pipeline, you look at the customers that you're dealing with, work through understanding where each one of those is at and push the ones you can push, because that's what we all need to do, let's face it, but pull them through this transaction. In season 1 of the NRDD show, where we didn't have so many technical issues like this, trying a new platform live, we were going out to members exclusively and sharing with them information. And we had the wonderful Bob Berg on the show, the author of the Go Giver series. And Bob, and I coined this phrase, with Dan, which is, don't push people through a sales transaction, pull them through doing a sales transaction with you, and you'll get a far better result. So what I would like to share with you guys and leave you guys a surprise sales tip is this: if you're in business, your first 2 weeks of the month is collating your information, is getting together the opportunities and collating the opportunities that are in your pipeline to look to close that month. The second week is looking at how you will deliver and roll out those opportunities. Now, what most salespeople do, and a lot of businesses do, unfortunately, is take all 30 days to sell. That's the mistake. If you take all 30 days to sell in the month, you're going to constantly be chasing your tail month after month after month after month, doing service delivery, and you won't have sales because you're doing so much service delivery, so much installs, so much of the service needs to be set up and put in the month that follows, right? And what I mean by that is this: if all you're doing is chasing your tail and fighting fires, it becomes very hard to keep on selling. And those in sales and been in sales for years will know exactly what I'm talking about. So if you work through the process of the first 2 weeks is organized, structured, it's in your sales pipeline, and you know the opportunities you have that you're working on are at, say, 75% ready to go, proposals out, decision makers know what they're doing, you're just waiting for ink to touch the paper, then what you're looking for is in the second 2 weeks or the last week of that month is invoicing and closing out those opportunities. Hope that's helped you guys. I'm sorry about the technical issues. If you stayed with us the whole time, thank you so much. Understand this: sometimes when you're in a presentation, it's not always going to go your way, but you've always got to do the best you can to make sure that things flow as seamlessly as they can, and that's what I've tried to do today. Hope you guys have an awesome sales week. Get out there and crush your sales. See you again soon.